Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Ask Sharifah. Oh, we're going to have a great episode today. As always, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to do what I always invite you to do, and that is to go ahead and share this interview because friends, do not let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. We got some good stuff going on here. If they miss out, it's your fault. I'm telling you that right now because today's guest is going to allow you or to help you to be able to change your mindset and how to have that rich type of thinking. Today's guest is a dynamic speaker and an amazing person, Miss Leslie Zann. How are you today, Leslie?
I'm terrific. Sharifah. Always a pleasure to see you.
It's wonderful. You look so great. You're happy. You're excited. Now, you are working with Grow Rich Thinking. Can you tell us what exactly that is?
Well, actually, I have been invited to be a presenter, a speaker on the upcoming Think and Grow Rich, the Legacy World Tour. This is a great break for me. And so the tour starts, in fact, this weekend, May 3rd and 4th in Anaheim, California. And so I created a little booklet, Grow Rich Thinking, as a companion to my keynote for the Think and Grow Rich tour, because this is going to be a tour that goes all year. It's going to be an international tour, and I just wanted to have a handout, and it's become so popular. We actually have it on Amazon now, and in Kindle form. It's Grow Rich Thinking. It's a little booklet, but it's a powerful little booklet.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to do your keynote speech, and when is that?
When is it?
Yes.
I will be speaking in Anaheim. I just got my time slot. I will be speaking Saturday afternoon. In fact, they gave me the right after lunch slot. So that's for the perky people who can bring them back, help them digest, and help them get their heads back in the game.
Okay, so Leslie, all of our viewers always want to know the same thing. No matter what type of industry, what type of product, what type of service, they always ask the same thing. How did you wind up here? Did you think, it was only about 5 years, since you were 21. But when you were that age, 21, ready to take over the world, did you see yourself here doing this? Or how did you wind up here?
That's an interesting question. I appreciate your comment on my age. I'm actually 59, and it's a good compliment for taking good care of yourself, but that's a whole other conversation. So let me see. I really look at my life now in two distinct chapters. Like I feel I'm in a third chapter now, but two distinct chapters looking back. So I got married young in my early 20s. My first husband was a contractor. He had a dream to build homes. And so I went to night school and learned how homes were built. I got my real estate license. And for 10 years, we were very successful in building what's called spec homes, where you buy the land, you build the home. And as the realtor, I sold the home. We were in Northern California in the 80s. And it was a good time to be building spec homes. We did like $500,000 to $1 million spec homes. Everything was going great for about 10 years, and then there was a water moratorium. We had a drought, many years of drought in California. So they stopped all building, which basically put us out of work. So we had to make a decision to go someplace else. So we did a little road trip, and we ended up moving from the San Luis Obispo, California area. We found El Dorado County, which is about an hour east of Sacramento. And they had plenty of land, and they were pro-growth, and they just said, come on. So we did. So we sold everything. We moved. We bought a home on 5 acres, and we invested $500,000 on 2 lots in a golf course community. We built high-end homes. The next 2 years transform my life, the things that happened over the next 2 years. It started with, I hung my license at the Remax, and Richard started building his home. And about 6 months after we were starting this new chapter, we got a phone call from the realtor that sold us the lots, water moratorium. So in one phone call, we lost all our working capital. It put my husband out of work. We had not lived there long enough for people to know, to know us and love us and know what a good builder he was and what a good agent I was. And that started this whole cascade of loss. And, we started scrambling. We started incurring a lot of debt. Ultimately, Richard decided to take a minimum wage job at the Home Depot. I don't know why we thought that made sense. That wasn't covering our debt at all. But so he's working at the Home Depot. I'm doing open house. All this debt is growing. And then one day I'm out to lunch with my real estate partner. And now, depending on the age of your listeners, Sharifah, they may not understand this part, but my pager went off, which meant I had a phone call coming in. So before I could even get up and go to the phone, the hostess came running over to our table and said, Leslie, your office just called and your house is burning down.
Oh, wow.
So I get in the car, I go screeching over to my house, and sure enough, our house is fully engulfed in flames. Our neighbors saved our dogs, and the firemen saved our cat. So nobody perished, but we lost all our stuff. So in less than a year, I lost all our money. We lost our ability to work, my husband's career. Then we lost our home, lost all our stuff. It was crazy. Ultimately, we were forced to go bankrupt, which was very difficult for me. I was really embarrassed, and it was very challenging. I cried all the way to the attorney's office. It wasn't an easy decision. I signed all the papers. I cried all the way home. I couldn't even say the word bankruptcy for 2 years. And so through all this, the way I dealt with the stress of everything was through eating. So I had put on a lot of weight, and my mother came for a visit. So here we are, bankrupt, no money, no stuff. Life's completely different. My mother takes one look at me and she says, nothing's more important than your health, which made a lot of sense. So my mom, who was in a direct selling health and nutritional company at the time, sent me her stuff. I went on her shakes. I dropped the weight. And then I joined her in business. And my mom and I ended up working together for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh. Like, I loved her before. After 16 years working with your mom, holy smokes. Like, you just learn that whatever she says, just smile, because that's what moms do. So we worked together for 16 years and created a very successful business. So financially, I got back on my feet, and yet that marriage did not survive. We married young, and I really think, looking back, the way we matured through all the trauma, we just became two different people. So we split up. Now I'm working with my mom. We're building this successful business. This is where I started training. This is where I started speaking. This is where I began leading. I'd been an entrepreneur, but this is when I had exposure to team building and training and coaching. So Mom and I worked together for many, many years. I met another man. Fell in love, got married. So here we go. I'm building my business with my mom. I'm remarried. Fast forward 15 years. I told you I had 2 distinct chapters. 15 years. I come home from a training gig, and my husband of 15 years looks at me and says, Leslie, I'm not in love with you anymore. Now,
oh, wow.
I know. I could say this now. Don't worry. This 8 years ago. I'm not going to break out in tears. I mean, it took me a long time to even be able to say that truth. I mean, so here again, loss of everything I knew to be true. And that situation, I quit my job, and I really was just devastated. The whole thing, I did not handle it well. I was full of grief, and yet coming out of the grief, there was this little voice in my head that said, Leslie, this can allow you to be the best Leslie you can be. Now, we all heard that phrase, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's how you get back up.
Right.
One of the lessons I've learned from this, it's not whether you get knocked down, but how you get back up transformed. Okay, so I learned a big lesson through both these situations that I get to choose my response to what happened. I can choose to be a victim. Okay, go back to the BK and the loss and everything. I could choose to just quit. Woe is me, we lost our stuff, we lost our money. No, I chose to respond and became an entrepreneur and start building a business and put in the effort. And after the divorce, I had two choices. I could be that mad, bitter, betrayed woman. I knew I didn't want to be here. So, gosh, the lessons of forgiveness and acceptance and not defining myself by the fact that he no longer loved me. I mean, big lessons. And what helped me navigate all this was certainly my faith and my commitment, my unwavering commitment to personal development. Like, if I would offer your guests any piece of advice, it would be to commit to daily personal development, to start figuring yourself out. So when life happens, and it's gonna happen, my friends, you can choose to respond on your terms.
I love it. And if you are just now tuning in, we are speaking with Mrs. Leslie Zann, a dynamic speaker and a wonderful person. Oh my God. Now, one of the things that, and sometimes I push, so forgive me if I push, Leslie, because you mentioned, you said I didn't handle it well. But then in listening to you speak, it's like you're positive, and I took these things into account. I did that. So again, without prying too much, what are some of the reasons that you say I didn't handle it well? Because I know sometimes we get that Haagen-Dazs, because nothing makes you feel better like Haagen-Dazs sometimes, or whatever it is. But there's, maybe you didn't get out the bed for 5 months, and you look at yourself and you're like, you know what? I'm not handling this the best way. So what was that moment? Was it the Haagen-Dazs? You look at, there are like 5 empty cartons next to you. How do you know you weren't handling it well?
Okay, so if we're talking about the divorce, by this time in my life 8 years ago, I would not have turned to the Haagen-Dazs, because I learned that lesson with the Coronas and Doritos when the house burned down. Okay, so I wasn't going to do that to me again. Honestly, I kept thinking, I'm still like this today. Like, if I got to deal with something major, I'm not going to put wrinkles on my ass on purpose. I figure, why should I add to the problem, right? So the more difficult the challenge is, actually, I'm in a habit now where I actually take better care of myself and more healthy. But again, that's a whole other thing. So to answer your question, I didn't handle it well. Meaning I really fell into major grief. I cried every day for 2.5 years. I will never be that woman who gets sick because she held it all in. That is for sure. I cried every day for 2.5 years. So that was not pushing. That's really a good point. Perhaps I can rephrase that. Perhaps I actually did handle it better. Just because I grieved really strongly doesn't mean I didn't handle it well, because I actually did jump head first into personal development, which I had always tapped into, but not at this level. Like, I really did the work. I did the work on myself. A fascinating transformation about forgiveness. At first I thought it had to be unconditional forgiveness, which was very challenging for me. And then I read this marvelous book. I wish I had here so I could give the author the credit. And she opened up the book. She's a PhD, and she opened up the book talking about there's different levels of forgiveness. You could start with acceptance. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll start with acceptance. And that moved me through the process to where I ultimately am and where I wanted to be, to where I could authentically, not just words, but authentically forgive. Because a big lesson, forgiveness is for the forgiver. How many people are miserable, Sharifah, because somebody did them wrong or treated them poorly or said something badly or beat them up, and I'm not to condone the bad behavior, but me staying mad, me not forgiving doesn't change anything, and all it does is hurt me.
Right.
I wasn't going to carry that for the rest of my life. So forgiveness was a huge lesson that helped me move through it. Good question.
Did you have children together?
I couldn't have children. You know, part of that story, back in the fire, which again, I don't usually talk about, but I'm happy to, because I came to emotional terms with it. During that whole time with the fire and the BK and everything, an additional thing that was going on, I had 3 ectopics. For women who know, that's tubal pregnancy. So I wasn't able to have kids, but I'm very grateful. You know, this is 30 years ago. I am very grateful that at the time I came to terms with it. I had a lot of girlfriends who were infertile that it really destroyed them. And I'm just grateful to say that that wasn't me. Now, my first husband and I, obviously, we didn't have children. My second husband had children, and I am still very close to his kids. His older son, in fact, is one of my best friends. I'm still grandma to his kids. You know, we made it a point that the divorce, that our friendship was not marriage dependent, that we could still carry on that friendship. And so now he's in his early 40s, and he's got 4 kids now, and that's a special blessing for me. And as I'm 8 years on my own now, as I look to the future and I visualize Mr. Next, I think it would be really nice. I'd love it, in fact, if he had kids and grandkids, or the potential for grandkids. That would mean a lot to me.
Oh, that was wonderful. No, I was just asking if you had kids, because sometimes it's our kids that help us get through these difficult situations, these difficult challenges. It's everything that I've done as far as being laid off over 7 times. I've been divorced twice, so I definitely understand that road. But I always say it was my kids, you know, even with people like, how did you do it? You know, you were laid off. What did you do? I'm like, well, my kids still had to eat. You know, so I always find that they drive me in ways that I don't think anything else could ever begin to drive me. It's always for the family, at least. At least I'm glad to hear that you have some grandchildren, that your relationship with his son is still wonderful. So with everything that you went through, the divorces, the BKs, the, you know, health challenges, how did you get to the point where you said, you know what, let me help other people?
Yeah, I was walking on the bay. This was after the second divorce. This was 8 years ago. I was walking on the bay and reflecting on my life. So at the time I was 50, and I was reflecting on my life, and I had this unexpected epiphany on how I couldn't remember the last time I had done anything risky or out of my comfort zone. I realized I had become this risk-adverse woman. And it surprised me. It shocked me, really, into action. I mean, I made
the bungee jumping. Did you go bungee jumping next?
Well, one of the things I thought it was bungee jumping, but when I was still in that really good habit of coming up with excuses why not to, I thought, well, why the hell would I want to hurt my back at 50 years old? That would be pretty silly, right? By the time I got home, I did a Google search, I signed up, and I did the scariest thing I could think of. I jumped out of a plane.
Oh, wow.
That started everything. I made the decision, I did it. And then I thought, what else could I do? I fell off a horse when I was 10 years old. And I used to love to ride horses. I haven't been on a horse since I was 10 years old, right? So 49 years. 2 years ago, I took myself to Montana for vacation and I went up to the wrangler and I said, I've been afraid of horses since I fell off that horse, and I want to get on the horse. So I went horseback riding. And I've been afraid to sing ever since I was embarrassed singing in the 5th grade. I mean, I lip sync Happy Birthday. So I found a music teacher, I learned how to sing, and I sang in a recital. Like it drove me to purposefully not let fear stop me from living my best life. And historically, my speaking has always been about courage and living your best life. And yet when I started sharing my personal stories of overcoming fear, like when I started talking about the skydiving, getting back on the horse and singing in the recital, it really shifted my brand and it really shifted my message. And now I would say a key theme for me is, you know, we're going to have fears, and yet it's our choice to purposefully move through them. And not just for the results, but the fact that it just adds a different spice to life. It changes everything.
Yes, you seem as if you're someone who's more like they say I'm the drill sergeant, but you seem to have that kind of same kind of drill sergeant kind of, you know, let's do it, let's make it happen, let's get out there. So how did you go from, you know, just taking courage to do whatever you wanted to do to focusing on the whole think? Because I don't know if it's the whole, I want to use the think and grow rich. Yours is more the grow rich thinking. I want to be accurate. But how did you take that from the courage to grow rich thinking?
Well, my audience are normally entrepreneurs, right? Salespeople and entrepreneurs. That has historically always been my audience. And so I really want to impress upon them that, yes, we've got these 5 major fears. I talk about overcoming fears and limiting beliefs a lot. And first of all, before I even get into the fears, when I say grow rich thinking, I am not simply talking about growing rich financially. I'm talking about growing rich in all areas of our life, financially, relationships, career, health, creative expression. So growing rich in all areas of our life. But what stops most people? A couple of things. Number one, many people are settling. They're settling in different areas of their life. I call it the curse of good enough. They settle because things are good enough, right? Maybe they don't like their health, but it's, you know, it's good enough. Or they don't like their career. Well, you know, they pay me, you know, it's okay. You know, or they're not in a happy relationship, and they, you know, or whatever. They make excuses because things are good enough. And for most people, it has to get to a point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like the day that happens, they can make a shift, but they have to have that awareness first. So I'm always challenging myself and my audience, where in your life are you settling? Where in your life would you like to see a shift? Again, in those major life categories. Do you want to drop 10 pounds? Do you want to find the right relationship? Do you want to strengthen a relationship you have? Do you want to go back to playing the piano? You want to get back on the horse? Like, what is it? Where in your life are you settling? And then we have 2 choices. Keep settling, at least know, okay, but I decide I'm going to settle. Or come up with a game plan to make a change, to make a shift. But we can't always act right now, but we can at least have awareness and think about it and come up with a game plan. So what stops people from moving forward? I think it's fear, right? I think there's 5 fears that stop most of us. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of judgment, and fear of change. And I think those 5 fears, in one way or the other, keep so many people from following their passions, from dreaming bigger, from acting bolder, from really designing the life of their dreams.
Now, I want to go back to when your ex-husband said that he wasn't in love with you anymore. Now, things happen. Like I said, you know, and I'm definitely sorry to hear that from someone, especially who's been divorced twice. But, and not to point any blame or fingers anywhere, but during this process, were you changing into somebody else? Because sometimes it's hard to change together. You know, when I talk about marriage and relationships, one of the things that people forget is that we're living to be, you know, into our hundreds now. And it's kind of easy to grow with someone when you live to be the age of 25, you know. Okay, they live to 25. They live, you know, they worked it out. You know, now they're 125, and that's a long time to change and to grow. You know, you have people who get married everything's fine. She's a lawyer, he's a lawyer, they're living their life. The next morning he wakes up, decides he wants to be a ballerina, and all of a sudden she's like, I didn't marry a ballerina. I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer. This is what we do. So again, not without going too much into your personal story, but did you find that you were simply changing, you were growing, and you weren't the person that you were before, or maybe he just changed and said, you know what, I'm someone different?
Yep, that's an excellent question and a very intuitive question. I can tell you've talked to a lot of people about relationships. So,
oh yes,
if we go back to the first marriage, I was changing for sure. I came out of, the loss and I came out of all those traumas a totally different person. I always explain, because he's marvelous. He's a lovely man. We just grew up differently. That's how I saw it. We just changed. I know for me, I started to find some strength. I started to find some empowerment. I definitely changed in the first marriage. In the second marriage, I can't presume to get into his head. And I really don't think it would be fair for him. And who knows, I will certainly take my responsibility. It was a twosome. I like to look back now and just, I wouldn't change a thing, actually. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't even change the way it all happened at the end, because it gave me the opportunity to have all these terrific lessons. My life wouldn't be as glorious as it is today had he not broken up exactly the way he did. And I've had the opportunity to tell him that. And he's happily remarried, and I am happy that he is happily remarried. And when I look back on our time together, I am grateful for the marvelous time, and I have learned to be grateful for the lessons at the end.
That is so beautiful. I mean, just such a humble spirit. Wow. And you can tell you're happy. The smile, everything is authentic. Oh my God. It just warms my heart for you to even say that. Now, I want to go back to you, and absolutely what you said. It's not just about growing rich financially, but just growing rich in absolutely every area of your life. So what usually happens when someone says, you know what, I need to go speak to Leslie Zann? Usually, what are they going through? What experience where they all of a sudden like, okay, I got to figure this out?
Yeah, that's interesting. So normally, I don't do private coaching anymore.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that. I've cut it. I only take 4 clients at a time, and they have to be top salespeople, and I continue to coach at that small level because it keeps me fresh, keeps me current. So when I'm speaking to people, it's large audiences and or through blogs and the Instagram. My Instagram's real popular. I would invite your audience to go to leslie.zann on the Instagram, on Facebook. But what are people looking for from me, or what do I feel they're getting from me? That's another good question. My brand is called Outrageous Achievement. In fact, my forthcoming book that's going to come out, that's the working title, Outrageous Achievement. I believe my message is how to help people overcome the fears and limiting beliefs, how to dream bigger, how to take the actions necessary to go from where we are now to where we want to be, and to believe that that's possible. Like my project manager, Kathy, always says, she's worked with me for many years. She says, Leslie, your gift is that you get people to believe that they can do anything before they believe that they can do it. And that's what mentors should do. Like I look at my business coach, and he gets me to believe before I'm, prepared to step into it. So I feel at the bottom of my soul that we all have the opportunity to design our life on our terms, no matter what's going on now, no matter what's happened up to this point, no matter what the situation is. If we gain clarity on what we want, and if we're prepared to move in that direction and take action, I believe we can design and impact and enhance any area of our life. I believe we are unlimited in every way.
I believe that as well. Now, Leslie, can you give our viewers those dates again that you have coming up?
Yes, the tour, the Think and Grow Rich tour. And again, I'm not putting this on. I've been invited to come speak. It's been sanctioned by the Napoleon Hill Foundation. The Think and Grow Rich tour kicks off on May 3rd and 4th in Anaheim, California. And so if your listeners would like more information, they can go to my website, lesliezann.com, and they'll find the information there. If they're wanting to go to Anaheim, they can contact me directly at support@lesliezann.com. And I have a few tickets left, and we can make sure and get them squared away if they want to join us in Anaheim this weekend. I mean, I'm sharing the stage with some incredible speakers. Sharon Lecter, Tim Story, David Meltzer, John Shin. I mean, this is going to be a fabulous 2 days. So they can contact me direct at support@lesliezann.com. And it's just a very, you know, again, for your listeners, from a vision standpoint, I mean, I got a vision board over here you can't see, but I have had, right in the middle is a big picture of me speaking in a stadium, right? Mm-hmm. A stadium. And so, you know, focus, practice, pay your dues. You know, this is just a wonderful opportunity that I feel so very grateful for, and as much to learn as to participate. I mean, the lineup is that good.
Oh yes, it sounds like it's very interesting. Might have to head out to Anaheim. I don't know yet. We'll see what's going on this weekend. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show, Leslie, and what I love to do at the end of every show is just allow everybody to just really speak to our listeners and let them know what you want them to take away from your interview.
So you're wanting from me, or are they coming? You're gonna
from you. What you want them to take away from your interview?
What do I want them to take away? I would love for them to make a commitment to daily personal development. And what do I mean by that? 30 minutes a day of reading. And if you don't like to read, you can do audiobooks. 30 minutes a day. And what my definition of personal development, okay, I'm not talking about spiritual reading, although I read spiritual reading, and that's terrific, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about books on leadership. I'm not talking about books on sales. I'm talking about books that are going to get them to figure themselves out. Books that are going to get you to remember how unlimited your possibilities are and how your potential is expansive. That would be the greatest gift I could give them. Well, let me rephrase that. That would be my best advice, and that would be the greatest gift they can give themselves.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah. Well, I also want to thank everyone for tuning in, because we have had an excellent show today. And so I also want to thank everyone who listened, and our sponsor, FireballApproves.com, is definitely someone I want to thank. So if anyone is looking for rental properties or looking for a vacation property, go to Fireball Approves to make sure you don't get taken advantage of by some online scam. Again, that's FireballApproves.com. If you're interested in being a guest, in sponsorship opportunities, or to watch more of my interviews, please visit the website at AskSharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful day. Bye now.